Everything starts in the future, 10 years after creatures have taken over the Earth. Our protagonist, Tanjiro, is defending himself from an attack while telling his sister, Emma, to run away. However, the monster kicks him in the stomach. It moves in to finish him off, but his sister jumps in front of the creature. She takes a steel whip to her back. Tanjiro screams and grabs his sister, asking why she did that. At that moment, he gains the power of a protagonist who has suffered, and he slashes the monster, cutting off its arm and head. He takes the creature's core and tells his sister they'll get holy water. He then takes her to Yonglu Base number 3. As soon as they reach the gate, he sees two people fighting with all their strength. The problem is, the female fighter, whose name is Doma, is his girlfriend. She is confused by his sudden appearance. The guy is their base captain and says he didn't expect Tanjiro to survive against a level 8 boss. Tanjiro screams, asking how he knew it was a level 8 monster. However, his sister starts to suffer. Tanjiro says they'll talk about it later and demands the holy water immediately. Captain asks why Tanjiro should give something so valuable to his sister. Tanjiro says he'll make a trade and offers his ring. He tells the captain that with the ring, Captain can buy anything he wants. Captain smiles but warns that if he kills Tanjiro, he can take the ring without paying anything. The only sad part would be letting his pretty little sister die. Tanjiro doesn't like this at all. He places his sister against the wall and slashes at Captain, but the captain just dodges, jumping away. He sends energy into Tanjiro's chest and asks if Tanjiro thinks he can win while so exhausted. Then Captain goes to put his finger on Tanjiro's ring, but Tanjiro says that will only happen in his dreams. He eats the ring immediately. Captain smiles, saying now he'll have to take it by force. He slashes at Tanjiro, saying he'll cut it out of him halfway, but something seems to activate in the ring, and Tanjiro's body radiates a blinding light. Time rewinds, and Tanjiro wakes up. As soon as he sees the clock, he knows he has 3 hours before everything starts. He pinches his face, wondering if he's reincarnated or if he's in a dream. His girlfriend, Doma, is sleeping beside him, and now he wonders if he should kill her. He's a thinker now, at least due to the betrayal, and he has the chance to change his future. In this life, he swears to protect his family and close friends. And of course, those who wronged him will not get off easy. Suddenly, someone kicks the door open. The guys ask Doma how she has the nerve to reject the boss and stay with that loser. They enter the room saying they'll break his legs. Doma acts terrified, but Tanjiro knows it's all an act. The guy comes to hit him, but Tanjiro easily dodges. The guy doesn't even react when Tanjiro grabs his neck and makes him kiss the wall. The chubby guy is confused, and Doma has no idea how Tanjiro got so strong. Tanjiro turns to the guy and says it's his turn to take a hit to the chin. He starts to leave the room, and Doma says he can't just walk away like that, after all they did everything possible the night before. Now, Tanjiro is cold and calculating. He says it's better for her not to appear in front of him, or else she will die. He grabs his coat and leaves. Meanwhile, Doma wonders how this guy had the courage to crush her and disappear. The next day, Tanjiro is outside and wonders why it's so dark. He sees black seeds and knows it's a sign that the eruption is about to begin. He immediately calls his sister. In his past life, she died from a stab in the back, but now she's perfectly fine and healthy. She answers jokingly, asking if he misses his little sister. However, Tanjiro just tells her to close all the curtains now. He warns her that no matter who rings the doorbell, she shouldn't open the door until he arrives. She gets confused and mentions that she is in the dormitory, which is very secure. Meanwhile, she goes to the window and sees something strange happening. It looks like people are attacking each other. Tanjiro calls out to her, but the call drops. He's at least reassured that she survived this day in the past life too. If a ring is glowing, it means there is a summoner nearby. The energy around him grows stronger as he approaches a women's restroom. He enters and sees a girl crouching, but she's already turned into a zombie. The girl comes toward him, and Tanjiro is a bit surprised because he thinks it's a waste for someone with a body like that to turn into a zombie. However, he doesn't hesitate and strikes her with an axe. He quickly grabs the crystal because he needs to evolve as fast as possible. At that moment, a strange man in a cloak appears. These are the merchants, and in his past life, it took Tanjiro 3 months to find the first one. These guys sell items, and their rank is based on the color of their cloak. The crystal he took from the girl can be exchanged for items in the shop. Just like in his past life, he still gets discounts for having the ring. He decides to check if the weekly function still works. Using a golden hammer, it appears. He realizes it's an epic item, but the shop dissolves. Unfortunately, he doesn't have enough stones to buy it yet. That's when he hears a scream behind one of the doors. He approaches and sees a zombie going toward 2 girls. Both are obviously healthy. The redhead tells her friend to hand over the knife. When she tries to say something to the zombie, Tanjiro arrives and cuts down the zombie. The girls are startled, and he explains that the woman had already turned into a zombie because she was bitten. The redhead introduces herself as Yuna, and her friend is named Mina. Tanjiro thinks it's a coincidence because Mina becomes a famous biomedical scientist in the apocalypse, and Yuna becomes a key player in one of the largest bases. Suddenly, a monster appears behind him. However, Yuna throws something at its shoulder, and the creature gets back up. Tanjiro explains that if you don't remove its head, it won't die. He gives it a full swing and goes to collect the crystal. Yuna thinks Tanjiro is incredibly strong, but also seems to think he's a pervert since he always approaches the bodies. Tanjiro, on the other hand, is only thinking about the potential Yuna has. The base they stayed in, Base 3, is considered indestructible. Suddenly, Yuna interrupts his thoughts and asks if he's looking for this. She shows him a crystal, and Tanjiro asks where she found it. Her friend points to Mina and says she was the one messing with the bodies. Mina tries to explain that she was just studying them and it's not what Tanjiro thinks. With that, Yuna says it would be good if he joined their group. Mina seems to agree, and Tanjiro is interested since it will make it easier to get his revenge. He agrees, and the girls tell him to stop staring at them so much and go outside so they can dress. A while later, Yuna comes out, prepared for the apocalypse. She already has all the gear. They talk about going to a safe place, but Tanjiro says the creatures are everywhere and evolving. This catches Yuna's attention, and she asks if they can evolve too. After a while, Tanjiro introduces himself and says he has 3 conditions that they must follow every order, hand over all the crystals, and traitors will die. He plans to put the girls to work in the apocalypse. The girls talk among themselves, saying he seems very competent, so they agree to the conditions. With that, they head to school number 1, which is full of zombies. Yuna asks where they are going, and Tanjiro says just to follow him and collect the crystals. He heads toward the zombies, and they think it's very risky. However, Tanjiro just raises his axe and cuts the first zombie in half, dropping the crystal. The artist gets carried away, thinking it seems like an accumulation of vitamins and minerals, which might be why they became zombies. Yuna wonders if they would turn into zombies too by eating it. But if that were the case, why is Tanjiro so keen on collecting so many? While they're watching him, a zombie approaches from behind. It seems a car ran over it. A guy says that despite the circumstances, he found Yuna again. His name is Max, and he is a fanatical follower of the girl. The 2 girls wonder why this guy is there. Meanwhile, Tanjiro is killing zombies, wondering why the girls are so distracted. They seem to be acting like they're at Disneyland. Yuna mentions that the guy is the prince of the school. Tanjiro turns around, but Max starts talking to him, saying that he could be a good bodyguard. This offer reminds Tanjiro that in the future, he will be out of money and need food and weapons. At that moment, Mina is attacked by 2 zombies. Tanjiro ignores the conversation and kills the zombies, saying they attracted too much attention. From a distance, Max tells him to come back, but Tanjiro has already run off. Max starts getting angry because even the zombies are chasing after him, and now the trio is surrounded. What Tanjiro finds most frightening is that nearby, there is a second-tier flower, an evolved creature. Mina asks if even plants are becoming zombies. At that moment, the flower's pollen begins to fall on the zombies. Tanjiro warns that it's a technique the flower uses to control the creatures. He continues killing as many zombies as he can, telling the girls to follow the path he's clearing. Mina is about to be attacked when Yuna kicks the zombie. Tanjiro is impressed that she's fighting without any weapons. Then, Max arrives with the car, telling Yuna not to fear because he will save her. He accelerates and starts running over a bunch of zombies. He reaches the door, and Tanjiro tells everyone to get in with him. However, as soon as they're inside, he shuts the door. They ask what he's doing. Yuna tells him to open it, but he says she'll only get in if she becomes his girlfriend. She responds that he is despicable, but he says she is wrong for denying him and being with this poor guy. With that, the girls turn to Tanjiro and ask where they are going. He tells them to run to the back of the cafeteria. They start to retreat while Tanjiro thinks he has to deal with the flower or the number of zombies won't decrease. Passing through the creatures, he wonders how the flower is already at rank 2. Finally, he finds an opportunity and strikes it with his axe. The problem is that the plant seems as hard as steel. It doesn't make any sense, and Tanjiro wonders if his return to the past caused some changes. With another blast of pollen from the plant, the creatures start to surround him. He manages to hit one in the leg, but another comes from behind. Then, the monster gets a small knife in the forehead. Tanjiro asks what they are doing there, and the girls say they wouldn't abandon him to die like that. He notices a scratch on Yuna's arm and asks if she is hurt. She tells him to ignore it and focus on destroying the plant for now. Mina explains that she wants to use a gas cylinder to set the creature on fire. With that, Yuna goes to the front to hold off the zombies. Tanjiro grabs the cylinder, throws it at the monster, and lights it up. The monster burns. He is grateful it's a ranked 2 creature. However, that's when he notices the creature's death pollen. He warns them to be careful, as it will make them fall asleep. A while later, someone is walking among the zombies looking for Yuna. It's Max, wondering how they defeated all the creatures. He approaches the plant and sees something on the ground. As soon as he touches the beetle, something shoots up from the soil and he spits blood. Meanwhile, Yuna tells Tanjiro that she is feeling a bit dizzy. He explains that she got infected, and she tells him to kill her. He throws her over his shoulder and tells her to relax. If she turns into a zombie, he will kill her without hesitation. Tanjiro is skilled at calming people down. While gently squeezing her, he says they need to get back to the women's restroom. He starts running and tells Mina to follow him. He reaches the place, and the vendor is there. He asks Mina to hand over all the crystals. They get confused seeing him approach the vendor. Tanjiro finds it strange to see someone standing in the middle of nowhere. With that, he activates the trade and disappears in front of them. The 2 girls are confused and wonder if they were abandoned. Looking at the purification water, they see it costs 4 coins. Tanjiro, using his ring, buys it cheaper. He spends 40 crystals and still has 60 left. He takes the item while thinking that in this life, he won't be anyone's slave. No one will be able to touch a hair on anyone he cares about. With that, he pours the item into a bottle and decides to keep things a secret for now. Transaction ends, and he asks how Yuna is. Mina explains she's about to die. Tanjiro takes a big gulp and prepares to use the strongest muscle in his body to heal her. Mina is scared, but at the same time, Yuna's hands start to heal. As soon as she wakes up, she shoots at Tanjiro, thinking he believes this will save anyone. He tries to explain it was the only way. Then, Mina throws herself at him, thanking him for not letting her die. Yuna concludes that it must have something to do with the hooded guy. Tanjiro says she's smart and explains that getting close to him allows you to enter a trading area. However, Tanjiro tells them to hurry, as they can't waste time. Once outside, he advises them to take advantage of the fallen zombies to collect their crystals. Then, one of the zombies approaches. Tanjiro realizes it's Max. He notices something and tries to protect the 2 girls. At that moment, a Tokyo Ghoul-style attack comes for Yuna. But Tanjiro is a hero and saves her again. Mina almost swerves, and Tanjiro warns that the plant has a distance limit. However, the 2 girls are startled. Yuna has been immobilized and is scared about this. Thank God, Tanjiro cuts it down before the situation becomes worse. He tells them to be more careful, and Yuna apologizes for being so slow. The plant sends out a toxin attack, and Tanjiro warns everyone to cover their mouths. Once again, the creature comes from behind. This persistent little plant is almost killing him, but Tanjiro has the legendary ring that instantly purifies impurities, allowing him to cut the plant. The plant stones were right on that branch, and Tanjiro collects them. Yuna asks what they are, and he says it's a second-degree core that can't be eaten yet. She asks if it's meant to be eaten, and he says yes. At the same moment, another little plant emerges from the ground. Mina warns them to be careful. Tanjiro approaches and says not to worry, it's an essence with the flower's attributes. Yuna is confused, and he says he'll explain later because they need to get back to the merchant. The merchant is still in the women's restroom. Tanjiro finds this strange. With that, he initiates the trade and buys a gun, a potion, and the legendary hammer. He's broke again but hands the pistol and some experience potions to Yuna. She shows up with a rifle and asks if he wants one of those too. He says no, while showing the little hammer. Yuna asks what that is, and Tanjiro activates the item, saying she will see. A magic circle appears beneath him, and he says that with this new profession, the ring will make him hard to kill. Yuna says he doesn't seem to have changed much, but he just ignores it while grabbing the hammer, thinking that with this new profession, the sky's the limit. He uses the transformation on the axe, which changes to a liquid form and then becomes a sword. He explains that a forger can build any weapon and add an essence. He approaches the one he obtained, and a blue aura emanates from the blade. He explains that, like the plant, this blade now has the attribute to paralyze enemies. Mina asks if he could upgrade her scalpel. Tanjiro grabs a shower head for more metal and makes 2 small knives. The 2 girls are impressed, saying it defies logic. He tells them to drink quickly, and Yuna doesn't hesitate. Mina enhances hers too. They ask if they will gain abilities, and he explains that only physical powers are enhanced. The scientists already wanted to observe the potions and make their own, but because of the current risk, they drink them quickly. With that, they start to glow a little and feel full of energy. Tanjiro points in a direction and says it's time to go save his sister. Finally, Yuna remembers the poor girl. A zombie attacks him outside the car, and Tanjiro accelerates toward it. They arrive at the women's dormitory in building number 1. A bunch of zombies is following the car, and they try to block the stairs using it. They stop, get out, and start running. In the corridors, Tanjiro feels something is not right as he approaches his sister's room. The door is open, and the window is broken. Yuna squats down, saying his sister seems to have been hurt there. Tanjiro thinks that's impossible. Mina goes to the bunk bed and says there's a phone there. It shows that her sports watch was disconnected 15 minutes ago. He says she can't be far, so they start looking for her. Meanwhile, on the 7th floor, a bunch of girls are tied up in a room. A guy grabs Tanjiro's sister's chin and says the apocalypse is great because now they can play Uno together. She tells him to shut up, or he'll get beaten by her brother, but he tells her to shut up as she screams. He says that's what makes it fun. She thinks she should have listened to her brother and not opened the door for anyone. That's when someone kicks the door open. She's overjoyed to see it's her brother, but Tanjiro doesn't look like he came to play Uno. Before the guy can say anything, he gets slashed in the chest. The others nearby start saying he's crazy to come alone, but Tanjiro ignores them and tells his sister not to worry. He delivers another strike and another guy comes from above, but gets a small poke in the forehead. Yuna finishes off the last one in 2 seconds. The last guy is alone. He falls to the ground, begging to be forgiven and not killed. Yuna says she feels bad for killing someone, but Tanjiro tells her not to worry because these guys deserved it. With that, Yuna unties his sister, and she hugs him, saying she was very scared. The other girls thank him for saving them and say their safety now depends on him. However, Tanjiro is cold. He says he rejects both of them, pointing to the side, saying he doesn't want to take care of trash in this end of the world. He explains that if they fend for themselves, they'll end up like those 2 on the floor. Finally, Mina arrives on the top floor, and Tanjiro says they found his sister, so it's time to go. The poor girls are just envious, seeing that Tanjiro will only protect those three. On the second floor, they see the car is surrounded by zombies. Tanjiro says he'll take care of it first. He jumps down, kneeing one and slashing another. He looks up and tells them to come down. It's all taken care of. In the next scene, they approach another place. His sister says she's really hungry, and Tanjiro tells them to stop at a supermarket. Yuna says it's risky, but Mina comments that they'll need as many supplies as possible to survive. With that, she agrees and accelerates. They stop in front of the guard, and Tanjiro says he'll handle it. He slashes and opens the door, and they're inside. Yuna finds it strange that there's no one inside, and Mina agrees. All the zombies are at the windows, but none of them are inside, until Tanjiro points out there's blood in one area. In one of the corridors, there's a giant pool of blood. Mina warns that it's human blood, so they should be careful. Tanjiro just tells them to go back and gather supplies while he deals with it. As he approaches the glass, he sees meat with blood on top. Probably, someone cleared the zombies from inside and then attracted them to stay around. Yuna says they found 2 backpacks full of supplies. Tanjiro knows that Yuna's ring can store some items, but he'll need more ways to stock up. That's when he feels something strange. On the second floor, someone is watching the camera, asking if it's her ex-boyfriend. Next to her is Khalidi, dressed as a bunny, saying he was never her boyfriend and that what happened in the morning was just a joke. He grabs Khalidi's face and asks if she's lying. She says no. He then tells her she will be mistreated tonight. Khalidi looks at the camera, seething with anger at Tanjiro. She says the bastard not only found another girlfriend but also abandoned her with this pervert. Tanjiro sees Yuna on the camera and says she's not bad. Khalidi, who's not stupid, says it would be good if they had all 3 girls. Her plan is clearly to be spared. The market guards say they have to deal with this because of their supplies. Tanjiro realizes there's a camera and tells everyone the rest is on him. He needs to gather some things. He approaches Yuna and warns her they're being watched, so they need to be careful. He whispers a plan to her. Later, Tanjiro is walking around. Since all these items will become extremely expensive, he'll need to store a lot. The problem is, the ring can only store 10 square meters right now. He picks up a bottle from the ground and throws it at the camera without anyone seeing. He pulls a lot of supplies into the ring. At that moment, a knife comes flying, and someone tells him to stop stealing. Tanjiro dodges and asks what this stealing business is about. Looking back, he recognizes Wang, a bastard who made his life hell before the apocalypse. Wang doesn't hesitate and tells his friends to break Tanjiro's legs. However, Tanjiro elbows each one in the chin, and they both pass out. The other guards are confused about how this young guy is so strong. Wang says he sent people to capture the girls, and if Tanjiro resists, they will all die. But someone behind asks what he's talking about. It's Yuna, saying he sent a bunch of trash. The guy is confused that Yuna took down his friends. With that, he throws himself at Tanjiro's feet, saying he was commanded by a guy named Part. However, at the same moment, he grabs a bat from his back and tries to swing at Tanjiro. As soon as it touches his hand, Tanjiro activates his reforging ability, transforming the bat into a blade. The guy falls to the ground, asking what kind of magic this is. At that moment, the other workers start running. They're impressed by the ability. Tanjiro asks if he was really trying to kill him. The guy apologizes and says it was the other guy's idea, but Tanjiro just says he'll let him go. Then, he drops dead. Yuna wonders when she'll have such magic. Tanjiro finds the guys who ran away in a peculiar position, begging to be saved. Yuna says they were being commanded, so they could let them go. Tanjiro tells them to roll out of there, and the guys literally do that. He thinks they took his words seriously. Khalidi runs to another room and says she'll take him with her, even if she dies. She activates the motion sensor, and the doors open. Tanjiro knows it was her doing. He tells Yuna to go up and turn off the sensors while he holds off the zombies. His sister and Mina come running, and Tanjiro throws himself in front. The poor girl trembling tries to protect Kingswer, saying she doesn't need to worry. Yuna approaches the control room. As she goes to open the door, Kalidi tries to hit her with a baton, but she dodges. She puts her in a chokehold, and soon after, she's tied up on the floor while she bandages him. While she curses, Yuna tells her to shut up because she's closing the door. The problem is, so many zombies are passing through the door that she can't close it. Tanjiro tells her not to worry as he's still there handling everything. Later, they come down, and Kalidi tells Tanjiro that she's getting beaten by Yuna and he needs to save her. Yuna says it doesn't make sense, but Park explains that she only opened the door to help them deal with the other guys. With that, Tanjiro grabs her face and asks if she really wants to help. She brings out heavy artillery and says she loves him too much. Tanjiro then says he'll give her a chance to prove her love and throws her out, tied up. She gets bitten, and that's it. She's writhing on the other side of the door. Emma feels relieved that she died. Yuna asks if that girl was really his ex-girlfriend. He just says yes. Yuna says they can sleep there tonight and rest since there are bathrooms and places to change. They talk, take a shower, and after taking the level 1 potion, Mina doesn't even need glasses anymore. Meanwhile, Tanjiro doesn't stop and is in the market collecting everything. The next morning, 3 guys approach the door, but as soon as they enter, there's nothing there. They wonder how everything could have disappeared. One of them sees there's a second floor and tells everyone they have to go up there. The others think it's risky. The strong guy tells everyone to go first. When he opens the door, a blade comes at his face. It's Tanjiro, and the chubby one begs not to be killed, saying they aren't zombies. Seeing Tanjiro's quick slash, the others don't want to do anything. Suddenly, Yuna opens the door and asks who they are. The guys beg to be saved, saying they just wanted something to eat. Tanjiro lowers the blade and tells them to disappear because there's nothing there. However, the guy points at Yuna and says he's sure there's food in the backpack. He makes a villainous face, staying there, convinced there's enough food to keep them alive. A knife flies past their heads, and Yuna warns they will die before taking anything. The guy realizes that if the knife had hit his head, he would have been dead. The guy in the green jacket apologizes and says they're leaving. The strong guy asks if they're really going to do that, and his friend says to just follow them and set an ambush. The chubby one says he's not with those guys and all he wants is some cat food. He even knows of a base with protection. When Yuna starts to say something, something passes behind her. It climbs on the chubby guy's shoulder, and he says not to do anything. It's a kitten. He explains he came to the supermarket to see if he could get some canned food for it. Yuna tells him to get it from downstairs, but he says there's nothing left there. Tanjiro says he heard some sounds at night, and someone must have stolen everything. Suddenly, Emma appears, saying the kitten is very cute. She asks to hug it. Tanjiro explains the creature is mutated. The chubby guy angrily says his pet hasn't turned into a monster. Emma insists, saying she wants to touch it. He says no, but she ignores him and picks it up. She says they are now sisters and that she'll even share some food. A while later, the chubby guy asks if they won't come with him to the military base, but they say no. Emma is sad and waves goodbye to the kitten. At that moment, someone approaches and it's the guys from before, bringing a bunch of zombie dogs. They apologize but say they are scared. However, they exchange glances, signaling to start the plan. One of them grabs Emma, and another goes to attack Yuna. As soon as the blade touches her, Tanjiro grabs his arm and warns him that he knew their intentions. Breaking the man's hand, he apologizes and begs to be released. Meanwhile, the other 3 are fighting over the resources. Seeing no way out, Tanjiro warns about the zombie dogs. As the chubby guy gets distracted, he snatches the backpack and escapes on the motorcycle. Looking back, Tanjiro sees the dogs coming, and Emma tells him to be careful. In that moment, Tanjiro grabs the other guy by the arm and throws him to the beasts. He tells everyone to take advantage of the distraction and run to the car. Tanjiro asks Mina to hold the backpack, and he tells her that the beasts aren't that strong. With that, his sister arrives with the car and tells everyone to get in. As they're running, Tanjiro looks back and sees a mutated level 2 dog. He tells them to go ahead while they insist he gets in. However, he says not to get in the way and defends against the dog's attack. In the car, Yuna says they need to go back to help, but Mina explains it's better to trust Tanjiro. Meanwhile, Tanjiro defends against the attacks and is almost on the ground, about to be devoured. However, he stays confident and tells the dog he needs to teach it a lesson. A swing of his blade decapitates the dog. With that, he collects another white Korra, but a group of devil dogs is approaching. The car stops, and Yuna tells him to get in. She grabs his hand, and strangely, it seems like her injury has healed completely. She pulls him into the adventure. They speed up the car, and Tanjiro tells the chubby guy to flee quickly. But looking back, he notices that Yuna's wound isn't healing well. She seems to be losing consciousness from blood loss, but she tries to act like everything is fine, saying she'll get better soon. Tanjiro looks at her wound and says it's too deep. He tells Mina to stop the bleeding and instructs the chubby guy to head towards a pharmacy. The chubby guy says there's nothing left in the pharmacy but offers to take them to a base with doctors. Tanjiro agrees, and they head in that direction. A while later, they arrive at a giant building that's the base. Tanjiro remembers being saved there in his past life, but the only problem is that the doctors there were killed because they saved people for free. The girls help Yuna, and the chubby guy tells everyone to follow him. He runs to the guards and asks for help, saying they have someone injured. But the front guard says no infected person can enter. Yuna shows the wound, explaining it was a stab, not a bite. However, the guards don't seem to care, saying that if they say no, no one enters. Actually, everyone has to pay 100 crystals to enter, and Yuna will have to pay at least 1,000. Tanjiro says it doesn't matter and shows them he has much more than that, even a crystal that's worth a lot. The guards are shocked by the amount and let them enter. However, they whisper to each other that as soon as Tanjiro turns his back, they'll finish him off. But Tanjiro notices the reflection of a blade on the wall and asks if they're planning to kill him. Before they can respond, he warns them that they don't have the skill to do that. He delivers a slash, and the first guard goes down. His friend is terrified and tries to attack Tanjiro but gets hit in the back. Yuna says it serves him right, but she feels some pain. Tanjiro tells her to be careful. His sister takes Tanjiro's crystals and shows that, besides those, they only have 4 left. Now the chubby guy is scared, thinking he's joined a group of killers and needs to flee. Then someone from the second floor calls out to them, clapping his hands. He approaches and asks Tanjiro his name. Tanjiro introduces himself, and the guy says he was the owner of a security business. He owns that base and offers Tanjiro a chance to work for him. Tanjiro responds that it's a good offer, but for now, the priority is to treat his friend. The guy then orders a bald guard to take them to a doctor. As he watches them go, he thinks Tanjiro has a lot of potential. They arrive in front of a shop and find it strange that it's the hospital. Tanjiro enters and says they need a doctor. A guy behind the curtain says he's the doctor and tells them to bring the patient. Tanjiro notices that this isn't the doctor he expected. After examining Yuna's wound, the guy says that a blood transfusion and a tetanus shot will cost 5,000 crystals. The chubby guy says that's a ridiculous price and pure greed, but the doctor says he's just doing business and tells them to go hunt zombies. Then someone behind the curtain says that if he won't treat her, she will. Tanjiro is startled. It's a doctor who saves some lives and ends others. She goes to examine Yuna, and the other doctor shouts that she can't waste the resources like that. But the female doctor responds that the ethics of her profession don't allow her to let a patient die. The other guy tells her to shut up and says he owns the place. He moves to slap her, but someone grabs his hand. It's Tanjiro, who warns him that if he wants to keep his hand intact, he better stop. The guy says he'll talk to General Leopard, and he'll sort it out. The doctor then tells Tanjiro to leave the room because she needs to treat Yuna. Tanjiro suddenly asks the doctor to be his girlfriend, thinking that she saved him many times in his past life and he wants to help her as much as possible. But his friends are confused, and the chubby guy wonders how many women Tanjiro needs. The doctor is a bit confused and says she doesn't even know him well, wondering why this lunatic suddenly came to confess. He says they can get to know each other side by side, and she calls him shameless. Meanwhile, Yuna is lying down, getting a bit annoyed. The doctor kicks Tanjiro out of the room, saying she needs to treat Yuna. A while later, she tells them to come in as Yuna is better. Everyone goes to talk to Yuna, who says she's feeling a bit better. But then someone nearby says they're the ones who don't want to pay crystals. General Leopard arrives with a group and says medical resources are scarce, so they have to pay the crystals. Tanjiro says he wants to pay, but 5,000 for a cut is too much. He asks if they're just creating this gang to extort people. One of the henchmen points at Tanjiro and asks if he wants to die. Tanjiro activates his ability and redirects the guy's weapon, like Woody Woodpecker. General Leopard says the boy has skills and would even consider making the treatment free if Tanjiro joins them. But he warns that if Tanjiro doesn't comply, he'll have to be punished. Hayato has the fire ability, and the guy on the left has the earth ability. At that moment, they send 2 attacks toward the group. Tanjiro stretches out his hand to save Lena, pulling her from the attacks and throwing her over his shoulder. He's worried about almost letting her die, while she thinks it's clear he has abilities. Knowing that the group might have even more abilities, Tanjiro says he'll join them, but they have to leave the doctor alone. The guy asks how Tanjiro is going to use his ability to do that. Tanjiro is sure he'll make good use of his craftsman class. He explains that he can make items from the shop 80% cheaper as long as he has the materials. General Leopard says it's a great deal but warns Tanjiro to fulfill his part. He then orders someone to prepare their accommodations. Meanwhile, Mina questions if they're really going to stay among these bad people. Tanjiro explains that he's just taking advantage of the situation to help Yuna recover and get more resources. In one of the rooms, the boss comments that the plan is to steal part of Tanjiro's team and force him to make weapons for the rest of his life. The girl seems motivated, saying the boss always plans very well. As they're being taken to their accommodations, a guy blocks Tanjiro's way and says he'll take him to make weapons. Tanjiro just thinks it's a pity that he has to advance the plan like this. His sister wanted to go along, but the guy refused. Tanjiro tells her it's fine and to rest. They enter a vault, and the guy shows him more than 5,000 low-level stones. He warns that if Tanjiro can't make the weapons, everyone will be thrown to the zombies. Seeing so many crystals, Tanjiro knows these guys have a lot of armament. He also points to a pile of materials, explaining that they've been storing them because they didn't know their use. Tanjiro saw this as a perfect chance to make equipment for his team. He explained to the guy that he doesn't like people watching him forge, so he should leave. The guy warned him not to try to escape because the place was like a sealed box with no way out. Seeing the materials, Tanjiro thought the guys were really foolish for not knowing the value of those things. He even found a spatial stone, which creates storage spaces. He gathered some materials and began making various items. A while later, he produced the best items but was exhausted. He decided to keep those items to avoid drawing attention, and also took a few of the guy's stones. Outside, the others were questioning if he could really turn trash into weapons. Another guy explained that Tanjiro has a rare ability and is now a new employee. Not to mention, he also brought many beautiful women to the base. Tanjiro then left the room, warning that anyone who touched his companions would die. The guys explained that they would check the weapons, and if they were bad, Tanjiro wouldn't see the sun tomorrow. When they got there, they saw several first-order blades and were impressed. It cost a total of a lot of trash and 3,600 stones instead of 6,000. Tanjiro explained that at his current level, he can only make 10 weapons a day. The guy slashed a piece of wood and was impressed, thinking that if this is the case, they can't afford to lose Tanjiro. Tanjiro then said that now that he delivered the weapons, he wanted to see his companions. The guy said fine and told the guy with glasses to take him there. The only thing Tanjiro found strange was that he didn't receive any expensive agents to install in these weapons. The guy opened the door, and when they entered, the girls seemed very at home. They felt embarrassed and asked why he didn't knock on the door. He just ignored them and threw a bunch of stuff on the table, saying he made equipment for them. His sister was impressed that he pulled all those items out of the collar. She immediately grabbed it from his hand and shook it to see if more things would fall out. He explained it was a secret storage, and that she could keep it. He also gave a second-order Desert Eagle and glasses to Mina. Mina was impressed because the Desert Eagle was an infinite ammo weapon, and her glasses could analyze any item. Sinon entered the room, and Tanjiro threw his shield to the boy, saying it would help defend against zombies. He also threw a vest to the doctor, saying it would protect against mutants. She looked surprised and thanked him. Meanwhile, someone took the weapons Tanjiro produced to Leopard for inspection. Leopard tested them on the table and was impressed, saying the weapons were as good as the one he uses. Then one of his subordinates asked if it was time to take Tanjiro's women hostage. The boss said not yet, as they still had Tanjiro in their grasp. He reminded them that once the bullets run out, these melee weapons would be the best thing in the place. And there's nothing better than having someone like Tanjiro to keep making everything. Tanjiro saw them leaving with the collection and knew they liked what he made. This meant he would receive even more materials when the revolution started, and he would already have a strong team. Someone knocked on the door, saying there were people there. Tanjiro opened it, and Lena explained that Leopard's girlfriend was there to talk to him. He went to the room, and she introduced herself, saying the materials for today were ready for him to make a good weapon. Tanjiro replied that he'd do it in the afternoon because he was still recovering. He liked to see that Leopard seemed very ambitious, but Hayato advised not to be too direct and said she could go to his room to help him make the weapons. Tanjiro grabs her arm, saying he has more things to do. The girl insists, asking what it is and saying she can go along. He asks if, in such a big base, there are any negotiators. She says yes, but to use them, you have to pay 3,000 crystals. Tanjiro thinks it's a rip-off, but has no choice and asks to take a look. She takes him to the door, where the guys are all heavily armed. Hayato asks to enter, and he sees a rank 2 negotiator. Knowing there are good items in hand, he hands over the 3,000 crystals to use it. The guy explains that he has 5 minutes, so Tanjiro better hurry. He opens the transaction, and Tanjiro starts looking at everything available. He notices that almost all the evolution and ability items have been bought. However, there's a type of challenge that has been attempted twice. High-level trades have a system where you can enter a test, and if you win, you get the item. Knowing he doesn't have much time, Tanjiro activates it immediately. He finds himself in a closed room. At least time passes slower there, so he has about 50 minutes. Suddenly, a metal paw steps on the ground, and he faces a mechanical bear. He doesn't flinch and just draws his blade. The monster strikes his sword, and he realizes it's a third-order creature. The poor guy is thrown far, realizing the monster is faster, stronger, and bigger. However, he knows that if an 8th-level creature has a weakness, this one must have one too. When the monster swipes at him, he puts the blade along with his arm and ends up cutting it. He tries to activate the paralysis effect, but it's still too weak. However, the pause the creature had was enough for him to jump and deliver a slash to its neck. The bear falls defeated to the ground. Someone says this kid is very interesting. Tanjiro finds it strange, and with that, his forging skill rises to level 2. Someone talks about searching him. When he comes out of the room, the guys surround him and say they have to search him. Tanjiro says he has the right to 5 minutes and got authorization from Leopard. However, the guy explains that it's forbidden to buy weapons, so Tanjiro has to hand over everything he got. Hayato says it's best for him to comply, or he'll suffer the consequences. Tanjiro doesn't like that and says he didn't trade anything because he didn't find the medicine he wanted. The soldier says everyone tells that lie, and Tanjiro asks what happens if they don't find anything. The guy says he might even die because it doesn't make sense for him to be there for 5 minutes and not get anything. Tanjiro spreads his arms and tells them to search but reminds them of what he said. The guy orders everyone to start looking. A while later, they tell the general they didn't find anything. Out of nowhere, the guy gets startled. He grabs Tanjiro's hand and hits him on the forehead. With that, He's on the ground, and Tanjiro says the price is paid. He looks at Hayato and asks if she wants to take a look too. The poor girl, trembling, says she's fine. Tanjiro warns that if she threatens him again, she'll be killed. The crazy girl says that seeing such a brave guy makes her want to go to the gym and do squats. He ignores it and tries to leave, but she grabs him and says it's time to forge weapons again. He pulls his arm away and says he has no interest in someone else's woman. The crazy girl doesn't like being rejected and says soon she'll make him her slave. In the room, Lena comments that Yuna's condition is already getting better. They believe it's because of the evolution of bodies in this world. In another room, they are worried about Tanjiro's safety, but Mina says the biggest risk is probably them being trapped there. The chubby guy says one of the problems is that he's starving because they're not getting much food. At that moment, Tanjiro appears and tells everyone not to worry. They get excited, and he throws a bunch of stuff for them to eat. With that, they finally relax. Tanjiro tells them not to open the door because he has things to resolve today. In the room, he knows there are levels 1 to 9 to become a forger. The only person who reached the maximum level in his past life built a base so impenetrable that no one could even break the walls. And that's the level he wants to reach in this life too. The good thing about level 2 is that you can receive special effects without adding crystals. And when you do add the effect, it gets even better. In that pile of junk, he finds a level 2 crystal that he decides to keep. Now is the perfect time, so Tanjiro fuses the crystal with the blade. He finds it strange that it doesn't seem to glow with a special effect, but when he makes a cut, it creates a barrage of fire. He realizes he's created something worth at least thousands of crystals. In the next room, Leopard comments that today's weapons are very good. But the guy next to him questions if he will really give an evolution to once Tanjiro makes 100 of them. Leopard says, of course not. As soon as Tanjiro makes 99, he'll say they're all trash. 7 days later, Tanjiro delivers another batch of weapons. As always, he takes the best resources, makes good weapons, and gives the trash to the guys. He goes to the usual bathroom, and everyone greets him. They still ask for payment, and he gives it to avoid trouble. He goes to the vendor and opens the trade. He activates the ring's weekly item function, hoping not to be disappointed. What appears is his staff, which unlocks the sage profession. He gets excited because many people would kill for something like this. Now he needs to convince a certain person because her using it would be perfect. Maybe it's time to collect some necks. As he leaves the bathroom, Hayato says he's making her feel ugly. Just then, someone knocks on the room door. When they open it, it's the henchman from before, saying the girls now have to go with them. Amao tries to run, but the guy orders everyone to be captured. They hide behind Eunhoo, who has a level 2 gun, and warns that their heads will explode. Their boss says his skin is steel and that she'll embarrass herself if she does anything. She ignores him and shoots him in the arm. He immediately sees that his skin was penetrated and gets angry, saying it looks like she's hiding something second grade. He jumps at her and manages to disarm her with a slap. At the same time, he grabs her by the neck, and the others move toward the rest of the team. Mina tries to use the glasses to find a weakness and help, but one of them grabs Lena's wrist. Hayato steps in to help, but sees everyone is immobilized. Before she can do anything, Emma is also caught. Now it's just Tanjiro and the angry kitten. The guy orders her to attack him, and she slashes his face. But at that moment, the boss orders everyone to stop, or the heads of the 2 girls will be blown up. Mina and Sinan realize they have no choice, and with that, they too are immobilized. The only one left free is the kitten, but the guy decides to kill her if the second-tier weapon isn't handed over. He says he will have to test it. Meanwhile, Tanjiro asks Hayato what she means. She explains that his people have been captured. He asks who is doing this, and she says it was Leopard's people but insists she is not involved. As Tanjiro tries to leave, she tells him not to rush because he'll end up dying alone. She says she can help him if he hands over the item he received from Leopard. Tanjiro ignores her again and tells her to get lost. Hayato gets even angrier with him. Tanjiro goes through the corridors and sees a lot of people, apparently hunting for him. He realizes that Hayato didn't lie, and his people are in danger. He knows this base well, so he knows where people are taken. Now it's time to repay all these favors. In one of the cells, a bunch of guards are standing at the door. One of them gets distracted, and Tanjiro is right behind him. He pulls out the light armor and says it's time to use it. He activates the item, and it equips on his chest. Meanwhile, the team is being thrown into one of the cells. Yuna comments that they can't just sit around doing nothing. Mina says that with her glasses, it's easy to analyze the rope so it can be cut. But as soon as they start cutting, the guys seem to notice something. They open the door and kick, telling them not to think of doing such things. Yuna takes advantage and trips the guy, telling him not to hit women. Sinan's kitten had already freed itself and freed him. With that, she mounts a peculiar guy. The problem is that they already have a gun pointed at the boy's forehead, and as a bonus, he gets slapped in the face. The kitten came running to help and started mewing. The guy immediately pulled the trigger and said he would kill her. He fired, and the chubby guy threw himself in front. The guy said that if that's the case, he'd send him to heaven first. But at that moment, something came flying, and a boot hit the guy in the face. He asked who and attacked from the door. Tanjiro, with his flaming blade, said it was him, already warning that they seemed eager to die. The guys surrounded him and told everyone to shoot, shouting that he should run. But Tanjiro is in the matrix. He pulled out his blade and cut the bullets in the air. His sword was creating a sort of gravitational field where no bullets could enter. The chubby guy seemed to be recording. Tanjiro pulled the sword and slashed the first two. The girls were impressed until one threatened to kill his sister. But Lena came from behind and tripped him. She's crazy. With that, his sister ran to Tanjiro, and the man pointed at him. Of course, Tanjiro disconnected the guy's arm in Photoshop. Tanjiro said goodbye, and the man was killed. He then shouted to everyone that they were going to escape the base now, but someone asked what he was talking about. It was Mr. Leopard with his entire team, saying it wouldn't be that easy. He asked why Tanjiro did something like this when he had been treated so well. The chubby guy stepped in front, activating his shield, saying he wouldn't let anything happen. But Leopard said he'd make the boy his third in command if he stopped this foolish resistance. Tanjiro said it was a great offer, but he only had a bunch of women by his side. He told him not to worry about her since he saved her. Meanwhile, the chubby guy admitted he lied about having been to this base before. Even Lena said it was better for him to run since she was from this base. However, Tanjiro said the offer was good, but he wasn't very interested. Mina pointed out a weak spot on the wall, and Tanjiro broke it immediately. With that, the kids started to escape by climbing the rubble. Leopard ordered them to shoot, but Siddin stepped in front with a shield, defending everyone. However, one of the awakened ones jumped, asking if that move could be blocked. Sinan realized he was going to die, but Tanjiro slashed midair. The guy managed to dodge and activated an earth magic in his direction. Tanjiro dodged to the side, activating the blade and moving forward. The slash hit the neck, and even with tough skin, it left a cut. The guy asked how it was possible to break his petrification, but Tanjiro just jumped, saying he would die without knowing, and slashed him. The girls kept urging them to escape, and Leopard ordered his men to finish them off. The chubby guy stepped in front, but Tanjiro told him to run. While he protected them, the girls started pulling Sinan, and the guys even launched a bazooka shot. The problem was it hit the ceiling, closing the exit. Tanjiro took advantage of this to slip through and jump to the other side. With that, his sister celebrated, and he returned the weapon to Yuna, telling her to be more careful. She got emotional seeing that he hadn't forgotten her. But then, an explosion came from where they had come from. The captain actually transformed into Leopard, saying they wouldn't leave today. Tanjiro fired a few bullets, but the guy was too fast and easily dodged. A second later, he was almost in front of Yuna, but Tanjiro stepped in to defend and block the first attack. He warned everyone to flee because no one stood a chance against him. The group had to retreat due to the horde of zombies. That part let out a roar, cutting everything around. Tanjiro had to run to the group to activate the shield and defend against the attack. Realizing that the guy had consumed too many resources, Mina ran toward a car, telling them to follow. The other girls went too, while Lampard activated a technique in his paw and warned that now he would tear off Tanjiro's leg. He prepared and jumped toward the boy, who was calmly waiting for him to arrive. The guy said Tanjiro was trash and thought he was going to win with that rank 1 weapon. However, Tanjiro slashes at his hand, forcing the guy to defend himself, but all of his claws are cut off. Tanjiro smiles, saying he made this with the materials the guy himself gave him. Leopard says it's impossible because he can only make rank 1 items. That's when Tanjiro reveals that for a base chief, the guy is very naive. Leopard hesitates for a second when he sees that Tanjiro has a second rank weapon and decides to wait for Hayato. In the meantime, the girls approach with a car and get in to flee. However, the chief concludes that if the boy could really defeat him, he would have come to him. With that, he starts running after the car, saying he knows Tanjiro was bluffing. Yuna tries to shoot, but he easily dodges. Tanjiro tells them to head to the part of the city with more zombies while Leopard is right next to the car, keeping up. They start passing through the horde of zombies. The car can easily ignore them, but Leopard has to deal with a few. Emma celebrates, thinking he's falling behind, but the guy roars and cuts everything in half. He explodes the area and resumes chasing the car. The crew doesn't understand why they can't escape and tells Mina to speed up. But then, Mina warns that there's something ahead of them. It's a giant zombie, and Tanjiro warns that it's a third-class one. Tanjiro immediately tells them to stop the car, warning that third-class monsters are much more dangerous than Leopard himself. The monster jumps towards the car, and Leopard comes right behind. But the third-class monster senses that Leopard is more dangerous and goes after him instead. The base leader gets furious while Tanjiro tells them to speed up the car. They leave the two fighting and head in another direction. Mina finds it strange that the creature didn't attack them, and Tanjiro explains it was because Leopard was more dangerous. The doctor then asks where they are going, and Tanjiro says to head to Hoshan City. He notices a strange expression on Yuna's face and asks what's wrong. She says it's nothing, but Mina points out that Yuna's relatives live in Gigawa City, so she probably wants to go there. Tanjiro knows very well that Gigawa City was one of the most chaotic places during the apocalypse, but it also had the highest number of supernatural creatures. Most importantly, the person he wants revenge on is near there. So, he tells them to head in that direction, and Yuna thanks him. Tanjiro strokes his sister's hair, explaining that their relatives are fine since he already called them. He knows they'll survive for at least 6 months, just like in his past life. Meanwhile, he's thinking about how he changed the route and handed over a weapon. On the other hand, he asks the doctor to be his boyfriend. Looking at herself, she says it's not so bad and that she can compete. Then he says he forgot something and pulls out a class card to give to Lena, saying it's perfect for her. Yuna knows that a class card is very valuable, having seen him use one. Tanjiro touches her forehead, saying that a new world is about to open up. Her eyes shine, and she explains that she received a class called Sage. The chubby guy asks if the girl went crazy with the card. Tanjiro says no, cuts his hand, shows it to her, and with an ability, the wound heals instantly. She feels confident, and everyone is excited that they no longer need to fear getting hurt. Lena then asks why she's feeling so tired. Tanjiro explains that it's the cost of the ability. Lena says that if it makes her that tired, it's better if he uses medicine instead. However, Tanjiro explains that at higher levels, she can regenerate an entire organ in a second. Lena is very excited. Meanwhile, Yuna feels envious, thinking she'll have to gather a lot to buy one of those. But then, Tanjiro suddenly says he has an idea and tells them to stop the car. He says it's a good idea to go back to Leopard's base and steal everything while he's distracted with the monster. His sister says it's very dangerous, but he replies that without Leopard there, it will be very easy. Yuna says she'll go too, but Mina says she's too weak for that. The poor girl is left feeling sad, and in the next second, Tanjiro gets out of the car and heads towards the base. He easily defeats the zombies and goes back through the same route they left. Some guards are still there, but he quickly takes them down. He goes to the room where the guys hid the stone resources and starts collecting everything, including the 2 tubes of first-order healing potions. As he collects everything, he's impressed by how much an ordinary guy managed to gather. It looks like a lot to evolve even faster, and he wants to protect everyone. He uses the forge and creates a new type of bullet that can ignore physics. Then, Leopard appears, asking what he's doing there again. He's clearly in bad shape, with a hole in his arm. Tanjiro says he came back too quickly, and his second-rank weapon is really impressive. Leopard transforms again and demands that he return everything. However, Tanjiro says the perfect time to kill an enemy is when they're injured. Leopard takes a swipe, and Tanjiro dodges. He tries another attack, but Tanjiro blocks it with his blade. Leopard realizes that with his claws damaged, he might not have a chance. Suddenly, he starts to flee, saying that next time, Tanjiro will die. But Tanjiro says it's too late now. He strikes him in the back and then pierces him. With that, he's dead on the ground, and Tanjiro says, "That's one less problem." A secondary evolution potion falls from Leopard's pocket. Tanjiro drinks it immediately, saying that now it makes sense why he didn't find anything like that in the vaults. Tanjiro feels explosive now, jumping 3 meters high. Zombies are now like paper to him. Outside, he finds a motorcycle and, after a while, arrives in the city. On the way, his ring reacts, so there's probably a vendor nearby. He goes to the location he arranged with the girls and finds the car. He follows the tracks until he sees a group gathered around something. Strangely, there are a lot of people immobilizing Sinon. He sees that they're normal people, not zombies, but if they are going to do that to a friend, he can't forgive them. However, when he's about to attack, Sinon says the guys are good people. They explain that they were forced to do it by the village chief and a kind of tree magic. Tanjiro is confused, so he frees Sinon and asks where his sister is. Immediately, the chubby guy starts running, saying they'll explain later and that they first need to save the girls at the mayor's house. On the way, Tanjiro asks what happened, and Sinon explains that they were driving when a little girl fell on the hood. He stopped to help her, and she clung to his leg, saying her father was dying and needed help. Yuna said it was dangerous, but Lena explained that she could heal him quickly, and they could continue their journey. However, the little girl wasn't very friendly and thought the trap had worked. They approached a pink tree, and from a distance, a guy commented that the girl was getting very clever. They approached a wooden house, and the girl explained that her father was inside. Yuna looked around and found it strange that there were no zombies. The girl went inside and talked to her father, who was coughing. At that moment, Lena used her ability to heal him. Apparently, the guy was really sick because he realized they weren't ordinary people. He got up and said it was amazing that she was really a doctor. Emma patted the girl, saying her father was now fine. Meanwhile, Lena was now exhausted. They were about to leave when the father told them to wait. Some guys kicked the door open and asked who the new people in the village were. The father said they could rob other people, but they should let these ones go. However, the guys ignored him and said they were going to take all the girls. The father stood up and approached the chief, telling him not to do that, but he got slapped in the face. Yuna pointed her weapon and warned that anyone who moved would die. But, of course, one of the men came up behind Emma and took her hostage. He ordered everyone to drop their weapons. Now, they had no choice. The mayor ordered all the women to be taken to his house, and the chubby guy to be tied to a pillar. The father begged them not to do it, but he got kicked again. The chief ordered his daughter to be tied up and warned that if he didn't kill the chubby guy on the pillar, his daughter would die. Meanwhile, Tanjiro and the chubby guy were running toward that direction. They were a bit confused about the path until a guy in a black shirt appeared and said he'd take them to the place. It was the father of the girl who needed help. He said they were near the sacred tree, which was over 200 years old and had been protected by the village for generations. However, when the apocalypse started, the tree gained powers and killed villagers. But just when it was about to kill the chief, it stopped a second before. Since then, everyone had been worshipping it, thinking the chief had control over it. Tanjiro knew that trees couldn't be controlled like that unless the guy had an elf mutation. They approached the house, and Tanjiro arrived with a kick. The guy immobilized everyone and was about to do something to Yuna. But that's when Tanjiro showed up. The chief asked where the guards were, and Tanjiro said they were all dead. He jumped toward the guy and told him to get his hands off his woman. He freed the others, and Yuna was emotional that he called her his. The guy said to wait, that he had an offer to make. Tanjiro asked why he was deceiving everyone while the guy prepared to kill him. The guy tried to react with a weapon, but in half a second, Tanjiro cut off his arm. The girl's father begged him not to kill the chief. However, Tanjiro explained that this guy wasn't the chosen one of the tree. But at that moment, another girl was taken hostage. Now the guy's daughter was being threatened. The chief smiled, saying the game had turned. While the father begged Tanjiro not to do anything to the guy on the ground, the other one was threatening his daughter. But without hesitation, Tanjiro finished off the chief.